Hey YouTube, and thanks for watching Junkworks Garage. Well, we just got done, at least I just got done not too long ago, finishing up putting this Badlands 5,000 pound winch on my Razor here, using the Super ATV mount, and it was flawless. That 5,000 pound winch works perfectly on the Super ATV's mount, for this rig anyway. So I'm very happy with how that came out. It seemed it was a lot more simple than I thought it was going to be. Now, since I did that, it's time to wire it, and I know if I put the two videos together it was going to be too long, so here's the wiring vid. So if you haven't seen the install yet, go ahead and go find that on my Razor playlist on my channel. Otherwise, let's get to it. And to start, we have the yellow and the blue wiring here, which we need to undo. Now, I've heard a lot of people complain about the wiring, so hopefully this holds up. If not, we'll have another video down the road. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and use what they supply here. And I don't know exactly how I'm running everything, so I'm going to start from the winch and kind of work my way to the battery is my plan. But I'm just going to put everything on finger tight for now so that I can move things around or take things off or put things on as I need. And so over here on the actual winch, you can see there's a blue, I don't know, band going around this one here and a yellow one going around here. It also says positive right here and negative here. So the yellow in this case will be positive and the blue will be negative. And it's got the nut, actually two nuts and two washers here. You only want to take off one nut. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to put a washer back on. Take the yellow cord here, and let's see, this definitely has kind of a direction to it. I don't know if you can see that, but it kind of goes up, over, and then up, so you don't want to put it on this way, otherwise you're going to be bending this up. So pay attention to what direction you put things on. And then a washer, and then the nut. And yet again, for now, we're just going hand snug, not even really snug. I'm just going to keep it from falling off mainly. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this back through here for now, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be going up or back one of the ways. Same thing with this, it has a direction, so we need to make sure that that goes that way. Yet again, I can move that in any direction I want. I can pull it out of here if I want. That's where we're at right now. And before we do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and undo the battery cable here. Undo the negative first. I am going to go ahead and undo the positive as well. I don't see anything specific where it comes off, but I do know this top pops off fairly easy. And yep, that's a T25. I hope I'm going to go ahead and put this back in, hopefully, so I don't lose it. Definitely different sizes, a lot longer ones with washers in the back here. So the ones up on the firewall are a different size, so I'm going to finish these off. And the ones across here seem to all be the same size. Still going to put them in an order on this tray to get them back in hopefully the same place. So it appears that these are T25s up on the firewall area here. Make sure you separate those differently. They're different looking too. These look more like body panel bolts, so I don't know if they're original either, if that's just something somebody put in there. I believe 11 screws in this thing. Doesn't look like there's anything in there. So will that come off? It probably would have if I wouldn't have left that in there. Alright, so don't leave that in there. Right in the coffee. Alright. So I pretty much figured out where this is going to go. I have it wire tied right here to kind of head in the direction I want to go. So I'm ready to put this on. Now, a lot of people talk about these corroding, and I think part of that might be because I believe these are two dissimilar metals here. So, in home electric, and I'm assuming in auto as well, this is contacts, and it's Blackburn contacts. It's for oxide inhibiting compound. So it's supposed to be when you put like aluminum wires onto copper lugs and things like that, you use this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and take and put a bunch of this in here, and it makes a mess, so I have a rag handy here, and I'm going to go ahead and dab it on. You know, this is one of those things you guys got to kind of figure out what your plan is, how you want to do it. But I want this to last as long as possible. I'm hoping by maybe this will help. So then you got your washer and your nut. And these appear to be 10 millimeter. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this on here. Now, I don't know, dielectric grease might do the same thing. I honestly don't know for sure. And this just needs snugged, but pretty okay snug. Stop the presses. They're probably already hollering at me. Tell me what an idiot I am. And I kind of am. I was in editing my video and realized I never put these boots on here. These actually do have a boot that'll go on here. So I'm going to tear this apart, get my hands all dirty and my tools all dirty, and I'm going to stick these boots on there, hopefully, fairly simply. And actually, I'm going to go get a heat gun so I can warm these up. That was fairly simple, so I would highly recommend doing that. I don't know how difficult it is without doing that, but that made it fairly easy. Alright, that was fairly uneventful. I'm going to do the other side. I'm also not going to worry about the ones inside. They're up where I'm not worried about things touching them. I'm going to have to kind of come in here and redo some of this later on when I get some longer wires and more stuff when I do a finishing wiring on this rig anyway. And maybe when I do that, I'll go ahead and undo those. If I feel I'm having problems or worrying about it later on down the road, then I will go ahead and put them on, but for right now, not going to worry about it. So I got everything pretty well buttoned up under here, including the winch and the plate, everything. Now I got to rerun this right here. Now keep in mind, everything you button up, including your wires here, cannot go in front of, around, or anywhere near where the cable is going to be moving in and out. So pay attention to that. Also, when you put this back, make sure you don't come like up through here through the A-arm. You want to come back through this kind of area back here. And then I'm going to go, let's see, I ran out of SD card, but basically I was just saying I'm running this up basically the same way as I ran the yellow wire. I will probably use some hose clamps as well a little bit, but then I'm going to come underneath that and then just up through where it was before, just a little bit further over. In fact, I probably could hit the same spot it was before, but that's not where I want it, so I'm changing it. And this is a fairly important thing. This is so that your diff or gearbox or whatever they want to call that in the front end there can breathe. As it heats up, it expands. As it cools down, it contracts. So it's basically breathing, so for lack of a better way of putting it. And if you don't have that, or that's clogged up, it can damage stuff. As well as that's up here, you bring it up so that you don't get water in it. I've seen people actually run those in weird places where it's obvious if they go through any water they get some in there. So you want to get that up high. So where I want to put this on the firewall, I want a backer piece. So I'm going to take a chunk out of this, actually probably over here, because they're a pretty good size. And this is a pretty good size. Yet again, I'm using scrap material and a saw to cut this out. You could use whatever you want as far as material is concerned. This is fairly thin, but thick enough that I think it'll, when I show you where I'm putting it, it'll make more sense. Now we're going to mark this up. This is a factory edge right here. That's why I'm kind of using it as the edge I'm going to go by. Yet again, it just needs to be close. This. I'm going to go right here. So, kind of putting this on here. Admittedly, I'm probably eyeballing more than I should, but it's not exactly the straightest thing. But I'm going to work. Alright, and then this came with some mounting hardware. I'm going to go ahead and drill it out to that size. And I'll kind of show you my plan when we're all done with this. But this may be something, if you don't put this in exactly the same place I do or a similar place, none of this is going to apply to you. So you can see this hole right down here. Here's my plate. And this plate is actually going to sit right here covering up. There's actually two holes. And I put this on the outside, kind of where it's going to be, and I'm making sure I'm covering up those holes. Now I had to pop out. There was a couple of these in those holes. I don't know why those holes are there, if it's for something else or what, but this plate's going to be out here, and this is going to be on the other side, like that, underneath the dash. I'll show that to you later. And that'll just sandwich this sandwich the firewall between this and the plate, and I think that'll give it plenty of structure. This firewall is pretty sturdy, and I've seen other people mount it there without any extra space and or any extra strength, and so I think this will work just fine. I don't know what you can see or can't see, but I got the plate that I made now, and I'm on the inside. I couldn't get to anything with the drill on the outside, and trying to make sure I'm low enough to where I'm not drilling into the frame up here, although I could put like a sheet metal screw through there. I really just don't want to mess with that. And high enough to where I'm not getting into any of these wires. And I want to make sure it's as from the outside straight as possible. Alright, and then we're just going to drill as good as I can. That's definitely not going to be perfectly straight. Here's that, and that hopefully will fit in there somewhat. So I'm sticking these through here. I threw a little bit of paint on it. Didn't let it dry nearly long enough, but I think it'll work. Maybe it'll hold the screws a little better. And those will go right in there. I have, for the other side, some washers and lock washers and a nut for the other side that should hold everything good. So I'm going to do that. Filming that's going to be too difficult to film it and do it and keep the blood circulation flowing to my head. So I will show it to you when it's in. And in order to connect stuff to that box, to the solenoid there, I need to start running the rest of the wires. So this is the remote right here that hooks onto the wired remote. And there's already a hole in this right here. This is the front trunk area that goes under the hood there. So this just already had a hole in it from somebody, so I'm just going to try and reuse it. And I need to pull this apart, and hopefully this should go in here like that, and I should be able to get the remote on there. I'm going to check that real quick. Alright, I'm going to put this in here as high up as I can. This goes like that, kind of. So I wonder if I want to actually go at kind of an angle. I think I'm going to go at kind of an angle, because once this is in here, it actually sits like that. And then that'll go boom. So, alright. So this is where we're going with. I'm hoping it all works out. But I got my pick here. I'm going to go in there. And I'm going to mark that best I can. I'm going Alright, I'll mark the next one. This, here, this, here. And then we got a washer and a lock nut on the other side here. I'm pretty confident in that. Okay, so I'm going to try to attempt to show you kind of how I've ran things here. I got the blue one there, yellow one there, and that just goes straight up this metal pipe, over, up, that way. This one hooks to this front one that the radiator's kind of hooked to here, the roll bar or cage or whatever it is, the frame of the body, hooks to that. Nothing's touching the hoses or anything like that, so we're all good there. And then it runs back, you can kind of see blue back there. Comes up, everything's all hooked to the wiring that goes into the cab through the hole that's already here. Now it's time to put this in, and I'm going to put it through the same hole here, but I got to make sure I go down through here first with where the hole is that this is drilled. I ran this once already and then figured this out, but if you're doing the same thing as me, you're going to want to make sure you're getting it through the right area wherever you decide to drill yours at. There we go. So that's going to be a little feign dangle in there. So, in order to show any of this to you, I've got to hook this up out here. To try and film it is going to be impossible. Now, we got our red and our black here. And that's very simple. Red goes to red, black goes to black. Now, underneath the dash is the winch cables that I brought in. You'll be able to see those later, and I will show you this on camera, but you probably won't be able to see it very well. But really simple, yet again, it's color coded. The blue cable goes to this one, the red cable goes to this one. But for right now, I mean, it is just as simple as undoing this right here, leaving one washer on, putting that on there, putting the other washer on, and putting a nut on. We are up underneath the dash here again. I actually tweaked my back doing this, so I'm not sure exactly where we last left off on filming, but here we are. I've kind of cleaned up the mess that was in here a little bit better. It's not perfect. It's definitely not done. I will have to be coming back and doing that another later date. But I figured I'd finish this off, and these wires right here, there's a red one, a brown one, and a blue one, all go to the switches. Both the switch that's going to be in the dash, the toggle switch, as well as the remote switch or wired remote switch. We got our block up here. It's hooked into place, and the blue one actually goes down on the bottom here where the yellow one would be kind of closest to, I guess. The bottom where the yellow wire attaches on the other side. Surprisingly, I would have had this backwards because I would have figured blue to blue and that and this and whatever. And then the brown one goes to the top right here. And we're going to put those on right there. This one right here is already been put in all by itself. And then the red one right here needs to go to a keyed power source. Now yet again, you need to make sure that it's properly, you know, sized and where you need to go with things. Most people tend to end up going into here, which is your power port in your dash. Just know that you need to put that to a switched, so when your key goes on, this gets powered up. When your key gets turned off, this loses power. So that's the kind of source of power you need for this one. And then off of this wire, which I'm going to shorten this all said and done. Right now I am just going to wind it up and put it away for now. But I want to make sure before I cut anything or splice anything or do anything to modify this, that everything's working. Hook to that cord that we just plugged in right there. There is a shorter plug hooked to it, this white one, and that is where this plugs in, and the end of that is your in and out switch for your actual dash switch on your rig. Yet again, I don't know where I want to put this yet. I think I'm going to just leave that off for now if it allows it to work, and I'm going to think about where I want this before I put it in. And maybe that'll be a separate video because I have an idea for it. I'm not sure it's going to work, but if it does, it'll keep me from putting any more holes in this dash. So you may notice battery hold down. I went ahead and built that out of some scrap metal. Did a separate video on that. Go check that out yet again on my Razor playlist. But for now, we got that buttoned up. Now I am ready to start hooking up some wires because I need to know where to hook this up to a switched ignition. And I can't do that till we have some power going to the ignition and making some things run. Everything is pretty well buttoned up. I shouldn't have to worry about any smoke or fire or anything like that. So make sure you got everything buttoned up, out of the way. Nothing touching anything it shouldn't be. Okay, and once again we are going to go through this machine now that it's pretty well buttoned up. I got the couple things more to do, but for right now we got all the main wiring going here. So I started here wiring this up. I went back kind of up the bars here. You can see the yellow, it's running up the bars on both sides here. Then it goes into this main harness right there and in through where the main harness goes in through into the cockpit there. So we're at the battery here. We got this wire right here. It will reach that right there. Goes through, that goes under here and through over this way. And then we got our ground here, which yet again goes to ground. I went this way with it because the ground cable for some reason is a bit shorter than the power one. So I ended up going through here, which should be just fine, and down through here. Then I took and I drilled through that. I don't know if you can see the zip tie right there. whatever this is, it goes through plastic and then into, this is a metal, there's a metal bar or bracket or something down there where that actually drilled through at, because I kind of went right in the corner just in case there was water buildup or whatever, it would go out. But regardless, that was very difficult to drill through, whatever that was. And then I just have the zip tie going through the hole around the power wire, the red wire here, and then back through the hole and zip tying to itself, and then it holds itself in there like that. Then it goes down. Well, I should show this one too. Right there is where I decided to zip tie the negative wire. Then it goes down, comes out through here, and I started drilling holes and zip tying in areas here. There's a couple more wires down here. I don't know if those are original or from something that was wired up, but those go across along the same route and were zip tied there kind of already. So I pulled a couple of their zip ties out and added a few more zip ties along the way, because this right here is going to be spinning. So you want to keep everything away from this. Then I came through over here, and then I need to zip tie this a little tighter, but I haven't quite finished up what I'm doing here. And then zip tied these together, and those go up to the solenoid. Well, since we're kind of showing it all, I decided I probably should show you this. We got this back in, and right there is where it comes up. I went ahead and put one of those wire tie stick-on things to kind of hold that up right there. I also put some wire loom around that because it definitely was kind of digging into the wires. There is not quite as big of a gap as I hoped there was right there, but it's all in and all seems to be working. But these just weren't long enough to go how I would have done it. If I would have had more length on these, and one day I will do this again, but right now, yet again, using what I got, I would go out the firewall right there, yet again, up here and through in where the yellow and the blue one went in at, and hooked it up that way. But it was not long enough, so this is what we wind up with. If it gets in the way or I have any problems with it, you know, I'll change it sooner than later. But right now, yet again, I just want to get this machine back on the road and have some fun with it. When I don't care to ride it and it's too dang cold or whatnot, I can always shut it down and do it again another day. And I need to clean up all the wiring in this thing anyway. I got my tester here. I'm just going to kind of show you how this works, so I'm not going to take you under the dash and try and look at every single wire under there. But this goes on the negative. Now this is a cheap Harbor Freight one. And then you're going to turn your key on and you're going to start touching wires. And whenever this lights up, that means that wire is live. So then you're going to turn your key off, and if the light goes off, that means it's a keyed source. But if you turn your key on and the light stays on, that means there's power going to it all the time. So it's very, very simple. Good ground, that's the main thing. Make sure you got a good ground, which I will probably just stick this right here because I can reach everything underneath the dash. I'm going to start touching a few things that I know are probably live all the time, just to see if they are. I'm sticking my key in there, and then if I find something that should be power going to it but there's no light on here, then I'll switch the key on and say, okay, that's probably a keyed switch. It's very simple. Either the light goes on or the light doesn't go on, depending on where the key is. I looked at this one right here, and there's no power going to it whether the key is on or off, so that's probably why that got left open. But I am still going to cover that up, tape it up, just in case it comes in contact with something else further down the line at some other point in time and becomes live. So now we got our fuse block here, and I've touched everything, and with the key off nothing happened, so I went ahead and went to this main power inlet here, and that right there is a switched key, but now it's staying on. Why is it staying on? I turn the key off, it should go off, but now it's not. Oh, the light went on. That was weird. So, turn that on, turn that off. That's switched. But for some reason, I accidentally hit the rear light, and even though I turned that off, this is staying on. So I got this red wire hooked to where the power goes into that fuse block there, where I'm hoping to hook this switch. And I'm just going to kind of show you my deal here. I got my tester light here. When I turn this on, that light goes on. When I turn this off, that light goes off, which technically makes that a safe switch source. But what it's making it unsafe is that what I found out on accident is when I turned this on, I accidentally turned that on, which is the rear lights, and I have actually bumped this on a few times. Now, I didn't notice, and I turned the key off, and I was like, well, why isn't it going off now? What is going on? Could not figure it out, and then realized I saw a little blue light here. When I turn that off, it goes off. So, it'll work fine with the switch as long as you don't accidentally bump that rear light. But when I turn it off, it goes off, it kills the power and everything. But even though this is off, if you had the light on like that and turn that off, not only is the rear light probably running off of things here, but that whole power distribution box is powered until you turn that light off. If anybody can tell me why it's wired that way or how it is even wired that way, that's my wonder. Yet again, I'm going through this whole thing at some point because of stuff like this. That shouldn't do that. But regardless, I'm going to use that for now as my power source for my winch's keyed on and off switch. And I just need to remember, if I'm using lights, if I accidentally bump the winch, things are going to work on the winch. And that is what it is. Besides, when I'm using the lights and I'm driving, the switch is going to be on anyway. So it's not exactly... I'm not that concerned about it, but you could accidentally hit a button and your winch could go out and you wouldn't know it. So be careful. Regardless, I'm going to attach this directly to the top of that fuse block. I should probably maybe put it with a fuse, but this already has its own fuses to it. It just wants this hooked to a switched key source. It didn't say it a fuse switch key source, although fusing it probably wouldn't hurt, but then you'd have double fuses going on. So I need to check more on that. But regardless, yet again, I'm going to put an end right up here. I'm not going to cut this down until I finalize everything in here. And then I will cut all these wires to a better appropriate size. But for now, this will get zip tied up and hooked to that bar right there. In theory, I should be able to plug this in to there. Hopefully it'll work without this. I may have to plug this in for it to work. We'll see. I'm not positive. But there's that right there. I'm just going to leave it coiled up for now, because until I need it, there's no use in uncoiling things. It's nice and tucked tight down there. Then I have to turn my key on, which should energize it, but nothing should happen. Hopefully no smoke or fire or either. I'm just going to let it sit here for a minute and see what happens. I waited to see if any smoke or flames started going here. We got our winch here, which in theory should be all hooked up and ready to go. I'm going to hit the out, because I don't know if you can see this. So there you go, it is out. Alright, I grabbed a glove because I want to be able to kind of hold tight on it, because I don't want it to get too wound up. Now that is something I will say, before you use one of these, you want to pull them all the way out, hook them to some, well, all but a couple rounds. Hook them to something that's a slight uphill, or hook them to something that's fairly flat and straight, and use your brake, whichever one you can figure out. And not hard on the brakes, but have it wind up while there's a little bit of pressure on it, because right now these can get bunged up if you pull them out a little ways and then start using them and then pull them out a little ways. You want to get it nicely on there so that it's as if you're using it all the time. I hope that makes sense, but really you don't want to use these right off the bat is what I'm trying to say. You need to make sure you pull them out and rewind them with a little bit of pressure on them. But yet again, for testing purposes, I'm going to go in. So this is working to go in. I'm going to go ahead and grab it from here now. Bring it in all the way. I think I am all done. I'm going to call that a video. If you want to see this working, so to speak, in the real world, two things. I would like comments below if you want to see some riding videos or to watch things like that. And if you just want to see how the winch goes, I can, next time I'm using it, or not next time I'm using it, next time I go out with this thing, I will hook it to something and go ahead and reel it in the way I think it should be done, in my opinion, and the opinion of lots of other people is what I'm going off of. Go check out my Razor playlist along with a lot of other videos that are on there. Alright, well, get out there and get your junk working. Thanks for watching Junk Works Garage, where I'm proud to say I'm a jack of all and master of none. You all have a good one.